welcome to another episode of the Genius podcast. Last week I neglected to introduce us, so I'm not gonna make that same mistake this week. So say hello to our awesome host, Joshua Mitchell, Joshua the Genius, and I am our amazing co-host, Sarah Mitchell, Genius admin extraordinaire. This week we're going to be talking about all things antitrust and Apple. There are several companies that over the last couple of years that have been bringing antitrust allegations against Apple for various reasons. So we're going to dive in to the biggest one to start off with, which would be Epic Games. So Epic Games, the court case between Apple and Epic Games actually launched on Monday. So we're expecting this court case to go for the next couple of weeks. But basically, the issue that Epic is having is they're saying that Apple is using their position in the market to distort the market and make it unfair.
Yeah, to have unfair advantage in the market. Yes.
To have an unfair advantage in the marketplace. The marketplace being the App Store. Because Epic Games, they're the creator of the famous game Fortnite. And they're basically pissed because if you have an app in the App Store, Apple takes 30% of the revenue if you have in-app purchases. So if you have where somebody can buy extra lives or they can buy more downloadable content, similar to other gaming platforms like PlayStation
and Xbox.
So do those companies follow a similar model to what Apple has for the App Store?
Yes. So Apple, so the App Store came out in 2008.
2008, that's correct.
And Apple pretty much took the industry standard that was set at the time and applied it to their own monetization strategy. So at the time, the gaming platforms were taking 30% of revenues generated by the developers. So if you were a game maker, a game publisher, you made your games for Xbox or for PlayStation or for Nintendo, right? The company was taking 30%. And so when Apple created its store, it took that same model and applied it to the developers of the App Store community. So they have been taking 30% since 2008.
So am I to understand that their basis for choosing 30% was because that was the industry standard? That was the industry
standard at the time, yes.
Okay. So just so folks can have a better understanding of what we mean when we say antitrust. Antitrust laws were created to prevent companies from grouping together and basically making their own rules to distort the marketplace, such as let's say a group of companies come together, like the gas stations. The gas stations all come together and say, even though we're getting gas for 99 cents, we're going to sell it for $5. And we all agree we're going to sell it for $5, even though we don't have to sell it for that high. So these antitrust laws are put in place to protect from that kind of monopolizing behavior. How it's being applied to Apple is all these other smaller companies are basically saying that Apple has become such a big corporation and such a large company that whenever they throw their weight around and they edge into other markets, such as Tile, we're going to talk about Tile and AirTags. We talk a little bit about Epic and the App Store. The App Store is really like the biggest area of concern for the antitrust argument against Apple. We also have Facebook coming in, arguing about the app tracking transparency and how that's affecting their business. And Spotify also saw some success with bringing antitrust allegations against Apple in the European market. So these, where different companies are challenging Apple, it's going to happen on a country-by-country basis. So where Spotify saw success with their litigation against Apple in Europe, because Spotify is based in Sweden.
I believe it's Sweden, but they are based in Europe. And Apple also has business workings over in Europe. So they're able to bring about issues with antitrust to the European Union. We here in America don't have kind of that union base where there's a consensus of understanding of how companies should be able to deal with users and deal with user privacy and deal with subscription models and monetization models. There just isn't
it's not as
a governing body like the European Union has.
In Europe.
Yes.
Okay. So is it safe to say that there's a lot at stake with how this case, because the case between Epic and Apple is taking place here, it's going down in California. So is it safe to say that this is a landmark case? Like, however,
100%.
The courts decide, it's going to determine how other companies are able to engage with Apple as far as the antitrust angle?
Right. So to start from the beginning, so basically Epic, with the application Fortnite, right, the game Fortnite, they instituted a way for their users to buy the V-Bucks, which is like their virtual currency that their users, use for power-ups or for different items. They circumvented and violated Apple's app publishing guidelines, which state that you have to use the in-app purchasing Apple mechanism to generate any type of revenue through your application.
Within the app. Okay.
Correct. So they created a new feature that circumvented that process and transitioned 100% of the funds directly to Epic. Soon as Apple got wind of this, they removed Fortnite from the App Store, and it hasn't been back since.
Put up.
My issue with Epic is not so much that they're bringing up concern with antitrust. My issue is how they're framing it, right? So yeah. So
and how are they framing it?
You
see it?
They're framing it as if Apple's policies are affecting small businesses and affecting the market in a large percentage, right? And so I looked over some numbers.
Run us them numbers, Joshua.
Yeah. I looked over some numbers to see, where things are with the market. So the App Store right now has 28 million developers. There's 28 million developers that are developing for iOS. Okay, there's 2 million apps in the App Store currently.
Okay.
Currently, there's about 2 million. And the App Store has generated about $50 billion in revenue since 2008.
I guess what I want to get an understanding of is what percentage of the apps in the App Store belongs to small businesses, and what percentage of apps in the App Store belong to, I guess, larger businesses.
Got it. Okay, perfect. So 2.7% of the publishers right now make up $1.5 million plus dollars. Right?
In revenue?
In revenue, right?
Wow.
So there's about 3% of all the publishers, and we just said there's 28 million developers. Out of that 28 million, there's about 3% of those publishers and developers that make up the majority of the revenue that is generated in the App Store. 90% of that revenue is retained by that 2.7, and only 5% of that revenue is generated by companies that are making between $0 to $100,000.
Okay. So basically what I'm hearing here is that the biggest earners in the App Store is a very small percentage, which tells me
as far as publishers, yes.
As far as publishers. So that's telling me that the bigger gaming companies, such as Epic, are stand to make a lot more money than, let's say, you, because you're an independent developer, yes. Right? So 97% of the developers in the App Store are getting less than 10% of that. What was the dollar value that you said? It was some billion?
50 billion in revenue.
50 billion. That's crazy to me. So where does how can Epic really frame their argument as the App Store is harming small businesses when in fact small businesses are not making as much money as those larger gaming companies. How
Right.
does that balance out?
And it's not from the 30% revenue share that Apple is taking, because Apple has instituted the App Store small business program. And with the App Store small business program, if you make less than $1 million in that calendar year, in that previous calendar year, that following year you will be your price is 15% as opposed to 30%, right? 15% as opposed to 30%. And we just said there's 89.9% of publishers that make up the $0 to $100,000 mark. Okay, I'll say that again. There's 89.9% of publishers that make up the revenue share per company from 0 to 100,000. So the majority of the publishers that are in the App Store aren't even making $100 to maybe $150,000 per year. That 2.7, almost 3%, accounts for the majority of the revenue generated in the App Store yearly. So Epic isn't fighting for that 89%, right? Because at the App Store, Apple has instituted the App Store Developer Program, which allows them to benefit from that 15% split as opposed to the 30% split. So Epic is fighting for the bigger powerhouses, right? The bigger publishers that are out trying to publish their games. To me, Epic just wants to
increase their profit margin.
They just want to pocket that 30%, and they're saying, well, Apple hosting our Fortnite app on the App Store, they're not really doing anything to garner that 30%. And I would argue a little bit there. But I would argue a little bit to say that Apple makes sure that the privacy and the integrity of the app is where it needs to be, so that it's as stable as it needs to be. It goes through that app review process to make sure that it's always available to users worldwide, right? So with your iPhone, you can download apps all over the world. So making sure that your app is localized, making sure that all of your metadata, your text, your pictures are all the way that they need to be. It's just a hosting cost, right? And Epic themselves are currently charging 12% to their developers. So Epic they're not against charging developers, because they know that there is a fee that needs to be charged to developers to publish onto the platform. So they're aware of that and they support that, but they just don't like that Apple is taking 30%. They want them to take probably 0%, which I just don't think that's not possible, right? It's not realistic. So for them to have this huge argument to say that, hey, Apple shouldn't charge us 30% because you're hurting small businesses, you're hurting the market, I just don't see it. I just don't see it.
Okay, so that argument is a little invalid to you. Now, in court, Apple's argument against that is saying that they're taking this 30% as a way for them to maintain the integrity of their iOS and for them to make sure that security and privacy is in tip-top shape. In your opinion, as a developer, do you think 30% of $50 billion is an adequate budget to do those things? Or do you think Apple is kind of like maybe overdoing it a little bit?
So, I'm of two minds on this argument. So, I just said that I don't really see where Epic is coming from in the way that they're framing their argument. However, I do believe that there's validity in the argument in the full scope. And what I mean by that, as an independent developer, for me to make $1, I have to first give Apple 30 cents. Right? I have to first give them 30 cents. And if if I have just my own laptop and I'm working day in and day out trying to develop my own app, 30% is a high charge.
That's a lot. We don't even pay our government 30% in taxes.
Right. So I do think that that's a high charge. Now, however, when in 2008, when the App Store came out, that was industry standard. And I don't fault Apple for falling into industry standards. Now, in 2021, should that still be 30%? No, I don't think it should be 30%. I think it should be lower.
It should be reassessed.
Which why I do commend, it has taken some time. We're in 2021. But I do commend Apple for coming out with the App Store Small Business Program, to where if you make less than $1 million, in your calendar year, in your previous calendar year, or you're a new signee up to the program, if you don't hit over $1 million, you are only taxed at 15%. Now, if you go over that $1 million, you're automatically removed from the program. Then you're taxed at 30%. But if you go back down, you go back down into that 15. Also, in 2016, Apple came out with a kind of like a mini version of the small business program where they said that if you had subscribers that subscribed to your application for 12 months or more, those subscriptions were decreased down to 15% as opposed to 30%, and that was back in 2016. So Apple has been working on trying to decrease that percentage that they are charging to developers. I think it has taken some time, but I don't fault Apple for taking the industry standard and then trying to augment it over time. Now, I do have gripes with some of the policies that Apple has in their guidelines and how
to upload apps to the App Store. Is that what you're referring to?
So App Store submission has been very difficult even since its inception. It's become better, but it's still difficult to know if you know the process of how your app is really reviewed. What are they have guidelines on the developer website, but you'll see apps in the App Store that go against those guidelines. I know that there was an application that we were working on that had paraphernalia in it. This was a game maybe a couple years ago that got denied in the App Store. But now you have applications that like let you grow marijuana through an application. And so there's just some confusing lines with also there's like policy around political applications. You'll see some applications get denied while others will be approved in the App Store. App Store submission times have varied. Sometimes your apps will be verified in a day or two. Sometimes it takes as long as 2 weeks up to a month. There's just some inconsistencies with how the App Store submission process works and how to manage your app in the App Store. So there are definitely valid gripes from the developer community when it comes to publishing in the App Store. There's another argument that Epic brought up as well when it comes to search results, right? Search results and how developers can be seen in the App Store. So Epic was arguing that, hey, if I put Fortnite into the App Store search results, I don't see Fortnite come up first.
As the number one item.
Correct. Why is that the case? Why are there Apple apps that come up as 2 or 3, but those Apple apps may not be that popular to be 2 or 3, but Apple has just put them there because they are the Apple standard apps, such as maybe if you're looking up Dropbox, you may see Dropbox first and then see Files right underneath that instead of maybe Box or Google Drive, right? Another that they brought up was payola, right? And payola is basically, just paying for preferential treatment in advertising. So you'll have, platforms like Google or Amazon that may pay for premium spotting, right, and premium placement.
Oh, this is kind of like
Store.
In the grocery store, where or in any store really, if something is at eye level, that's like premium location, that's the highest valued spot. So advertisers would pay more to have their products at eye level as opposed to maybe like at the bottom of the shelf or at like the very, very top of the shelf. Is it similar to what you're talking about?
It's similar. That's the traditional view. But in the digital space, we're looking at, okay, if I have search results and I put in, let's say I'm searching for a browser, right?
Okay.
I'm searching for a browser. If Google pays Apple directly to be the number one search topic underneath browser, even if Firefox, or let's say Firefox. Even say Firefox may be the more popular and may deserve that number one spot. If Google pays for it, Google's going to get it. Right? That's unfair practice in how they're framing it, and developers have brought that up to Apple as well as an issue with how the App Store works. So there's, like I said, there's definitely valid concerns with the App Store. However, I just don't see it as inflicting against antitrust in the way that Epic is framing it.
Okay. So to kind of piggyback off of the last bit you were just talking about, to bring in Spotify's argument against Apple when they were arguing, in the European Union, they're basically arguing that Apple created an unfair advantage because they had their music app pre-installed on iPhones instead of not having it installed at all and letting the user decide, okay, maybe I want to have Spotify, or maybe I want to have Tidal, or maybe I want to have Apple Music.
Mm-hmm.
So that was their argument. What are your opinions on pre-installed apps? Because I'm I I don't really get this part of the argument, because I see the benefit of the Apple ecosystem kind of working in tandem. So like I can appreciate that when I buy a new iPhone, I have a certain set of like utility apps and basic apps that are pre-installed, so that I'm like ready to go right out of the store. I don't have to go looking for maps, or I don't have to go looking for weather and all of these things. But I could see other companies that create weather apps or create map apps or create music apps saying that it's unfair. It creates like a bias for the user, or it creates a preference for the user without giving any other companies an opportunity to compete.
So I would frame that and compare that to Google, right? So for a very, very long time, Google has paid Apple directly to be the default search browser. Okay, the default search browser in Safari. Okay, there's Yahoo, and I think there's Bing. Right?
Ask Jeeves.
That
That was my favorite.
Ask Jeeves in a long time. But Google has paid for that, and I think they've paid. I think it's $1 million, maybe $2 million a year just to have that preferential spot, right? So when it comes to having apps preloaded on the iPhone, it's more philosophy, right? And how you want to operate with your phone. There's a lot of people on the Android platform, that use Android-based devices that don't like all these third-party apps that automatically come preloaded on the phone. It's a lot of clutter that they have apps on there that
They're not even using.
may be popular, but they're not even using. But they come preloaded, and they also come preloaded automatically having access to certain content and data on your device, right? There's no reason why a calculator app should have access to your location, access to your contact list, and access to all your website browser data, right? So there's a lot of users on the Android platform who just don't like that. They want apps to be able to function and use, but they don't want they don't want the preloading of these third-party apps to disrupt their experience, right? And so when you look at Apple in the iPhone, or you look at iPad, or just iOS in general, it does come with preloaded applications such as the Music app. Now, the Music app has been a place where you were able to store your music. Okay, we got to remember how technology used to work before the streaming era. Okay, we got to remember that. So the Music app used to give you access to buy music right from the iTunes store, and then store your personal music inside the Music app, right? So for me to have that automatically on the phone, I love that. I could automatically open up my Music app, upload my music, and have my entire music library inside of my Music app. Now, when Apple Music came, that feature came, it allowed for the Music app to also have a
streaming
feature
component.
Exactly. Right. So
if
now
you decide to, subscribe to that.
you don't have to subscribe. You can still use the Music app as just your storage app for all your music. You don't have to subscribe to Apple Music. It's just a feature. So for Spotify to say that, because the Music app is pre-installed on the iPhone gives them an advantage, well, it gives them an advantage of the sense of having the application on the phone and allowing you to do with it what you please, but the App Store is there. And so for you as a third party, if you can market your application better to your users, that in saying that it has better features, it's a better product than Apple Music or the Music app. That's what the App Store is for. So you can market and be able to get people to download your application in a highly curated and premium level app store. And I think that's fine. Files, you could even make Dropbox could make, and Google Drive could make the argument that why is files automatically downloaded onto the iPhone
and integrated in,
right?
Because like Tile's argument is like Apple was not giving Tile access to certain features of the phone that they made accessible to AirTags.
That's a different conversation. We'll save that for AirTag versus Tile. But you could even make Evernote could make the argument against Notes.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of companies that could say, WhatsApp can make the argument against the phone app. Right. Facebook is making the argument against the messaging app. So what do you want to do? You want to open up the iPhone and have
nothing there?
Nothing, like just
bare bones.
How would that experience be for the user? Right? If somebody who is just a general user, they want to be able to just use the phone right out of the box, that's just not a good experience for them. So what I have seen over time is that Apple has integrated customization features into the phone, like with this last
iOS 14?
Yes, with iOS 14.5, they allowed you to say when you want to stream music via Siri, if you ask Siri is going to intelligently first ask you what streaming platform do you want to use. Do you want to use Tidal? You want to use Apple Music? You want to use Spotify? And then it will start to learn your preference. Right, and start using that. So
it's not creepy at all.
Yeah, it's but that's a step in the right direction to help the user use apps that they want to use from third parties as
instead
opposed
of
to
routing
using
them to Apple apps.
Yeah, so I see Spotify's argument beforehand, but Apple is definitely doing. I sound like such a
Apple fan,
right? Yeah, but Apple is doing and making effort into customizing and allowing user preference. And so this same argument, right? This same argument is in the Apple versus Facebook topic that we'll get to here in just a minute, right? Giving users, right, full transparency to how their data is being used and to how their preferences are being handled inside of iOS. And we'll get to that in just a minute. I have one more point that I wanted to make about Epic versus Apple before we move on.
Sure.
Lori Wright. Lori Wright is the head of Xbox over the business development department. And she came up as a witness in the Apple versus Epic trial. And she gave a testimony basically giving and stating what she's calling categories of devices. And the two categories of devices that she is labeling are special purpose devices versus general purpose devices. Okay? Special purpose devices are things like Xbox and PlayStation, that they're specifically made for gaming, right? You get a PlayStation, you get it to play games. You get an Xbox, you get it to play Xbox games. General purpose computing devices are things like computers, right? You buy a computer to do a myriad of different things. You buy an iPhone to do a myriad of different things. You don't just buy an iPhone to play games. You use it to use your camera. You use it to use a calculator. You use it to browse the internet. It's a general purpose computing device.
Okay.
And so she's separating the two and basically saying that, yes, with special purpose, right, special purpose hardware, there should be a curated model. There should be kind of this closed box environment to where
the sandbox environment.
The sandbox environment to where if you get PlayStation, you only get access to PlayStation games. If you get an Xbox, you only get access to Xbox games. As opposed to general purpose devices, they should allow you to access any type of store. So if you're using iOS, you should be able to access the Google Play Store. Why not?
I was just about to ask you, like, what are the ramifications of the outcomes of this case? So let's say Epic wins. Apple would have to make provisions for third-party app stores, third-party methods of payment. What does that mean for security as far as user data, user privacy.
So the way that they're framing it back to these categories is iOS should function like macOS. macOS is the platform and software that runs Apple computers. And so with Apple computers, you can download, Photoshop, right? You can go to the App Store and download an application that is in the Mac App Store, but then you can also go to a website and download an application right from there, right? So they want iOS to function the same way. You should be able to go to other places and other platforms and be able to download software into the device.
And viruses?
Yeah. The issue with her framing it this way, with her being the head of Xbox business development, she's basically saying that, okay, Apple, you created macOS as an open platform. Why can't you create iOS in the same way? You've already created a secure platform that allows access to third-party developers. Why can't you do that same thing for iOS? Well, my argument would be, well, why can't Xbox do the same thing? Why can't PlayStation do the same thing? If you, as Miss Wright, if you are the head of Xbox business development, you're saying that Windows, all right, Windows is an open platform. You can download from the Windows Store, or you can go to a website and download an application. But on Xbox, do you allow third-party app stores? Do you allow third-party streaming services on Xbox? No, you do not. Right? The reason is you see Xbox as a special purpose device. So you believe that in special purpose device environments, it should be closed off to third parties. So you're making the argument against Apple saying, hey, iOS should be open platform, but you also have Xbox, which is a closed platform.
I would argue against her categorizing these systems as specialized devices, because if you have a PlayStation or Xbox, you can do more than just play games. You can surf the web, you could go to YouTube, you could watch cable TV, you could watch all kind of different Disney Plus, Netflix.
There's the same hardware in the product. The same hardware that is in an Xbox is the same hardware that is in a Windows PC, right? Circuit board, RAM, hard drive, Wi-Fi antenna, Bluetooth chip. It may be constructed a little different. It may be put together a little different.
The user experience is what's really just different. The
right.
UI is really what's different.
The hardware is the same. So how do you make the argument against Apple but not yourself? And then so you brought up, well, how does this affect the rest of the market and how does this set a precedent? Apple called Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft and said that, hey, what Epic is doing might affect your business model.
Affect.
Because if Epic wins this case and says, hey, Apple, you need to allow another app store on your platform, or you need to not charge 30%, you need to charge 5% or 0%, it will either, one, make these other platforms like Sony and Nintendo have to open up their platforms too to other app stores, which right now it doesn't look like they want to do because they haven't yet, or is going to drastically decrease the amount of revenue that that Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft are able to generate from their developers.
Okay. So next I want us to transition into talking a little bit about how app tracking transparency that came with iOS 14 has shifted the ad model for companies like Facebook. Because this is another issue, for antitrust that Facebook is claiming.
So this argument between Facebook and Apple over the app tracking transparency feature in iOS 14.5 is the argument between supporting the advertising industry versus consumer privacy. That's the argument, right? Facebook is saying, all right, iOS 14.5 makes users choose if they want to provide what we call an IDFA. An IDFA is an an identifier for advertisement, right? An identifier for advertisement. Every iPhone, every iPad, every Mac, every Mac has one. And so that IDFA is what allows Facebook and other applications to develop to develop a profile on you and exchange data about you, right? So if I'm a user and I'm opening up Facebook and I choose not to share that IDFA with Facebook, Facebook is saying that that's hurting small businesses, because small businesses use Facebook and all of their profile data on their users to target their advertising media to those users, right? So if Facebook isn't able to create targeted ads, if they're not able to create profiles on you, they're saying that we can't properly give and support our advertising platform, which I believe is the number one advertising platform, digital platform in the world right now. Apple's stance is, we still want you to do that. We still want you to succeed in your business. We just want the users to be aware
and involved
in the process. We want them to have the ability to tell you yes or no, right? There's some users that want to share all their data with you. There's some users that don't want to share their data at all. And the users should have the authority, power, and support to be able to make that decision. Facebook is saying that if given that decision, over 50% of the users are going to opt not to give the data. And so if you know that, Apple, why are you giving them that option?
Choice. I want to get a sense of the environment. So you said that Facebook is saying that once given the choice, 50% of users are going to opt out of being tracked. Since iOS 14 has been rolled out, what are the actual numbers of people who have opted out of being tracked?
I don't have, we'll put it down in the description notes. There was a survey that came out that 98% is forecasted for users with iOS 14.5 that will opt to not share that data with third-party advertisers and third-party companies, which will affect the advertising industry. And if we know anything about capitalism, the advertising industry is a very, very high industry here in the United States, right? As far as the amount of revenue that it generates for our entire economy. So if Apple, who is the number one cell phone provider and smartphone provider here in America, if they start giving their users the ability to stop advertising tracking, then it's going to affect the entire market. As a technologist, as a user of Apple devices since 2004, right? I support privacy and I support user transparency, and I support the ability for users to be able to know what's going on with their data. And if 14.5, if iOS 14.5 is giving users that ability to know what's going on with their data and giving them full control over who has access to it, I fully support it. Third-party companies are just going to have to find another way, right? The financial, right? The financial gain that is to be made here against the ignorance of data usage, I am not for it. Right? If Facebook is saying that, hey, we want users to be ignorant of the data that they are giving to us so that we can make a profit, I'm not with that.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of people not standing with you in that, in that perspective, because even like working in Apple Store, I'd work at the setup table a lot, and helping people through the setup process. Some of the questions are, do you want to share data and metrics with app developers and with Apple? And more often than not, people chose no. because they don't want to share any more information that is absolutely necessary.
Now, Apple has given you a place, so they when they give you the notification, excuse me, there's a small text field that you can lobby your position on why you feel it's necessary to gain access to that IDFA, right? To say, hey, we're going to be using your data to do this. We're going to be using your data to that. And if the user accepts, then you can have access to the IDFA and do with it what you please inside of those parameters. So you have the ability to be able to present your case to the user on why you want to use that data. And that transparency, I think, has been needed for a long time, right? Advertisers, publishing houses, they've been able to profit in large quantities off the ignorance of users, right? People don't know why when they are talking to somebody on a couch and they have Alexa turned on, that when they open up Facebook or they open up Amazon, why there's an advertisement for something that they were just talking about, right? Now people are becoming more aware of those things, right? And so they want full control over now how their data, how their mic is being used, how their video is being used, how their contacts are being used, how their friends lists are being used. They want more control over that. So 14.5 provides that. Facebook and other third parties are just going to have to figure it out. And as a small business owner, I do think that it will affect my marketing campaigns. I believe that. Yeah, I do think that it will affect my marketing campaigns.
Because Facebook allows us to really fine tune who sees our ads.
Yeah, so I do think that it will affect, but I support privacy. So as a small business, I'm going to have to figure it out. I support having the ability to be able to tell advertisers and third parties, no, I don't want you to have access to anything. On the flip side, if you want access to everything, here, you can have it, but it's my choice.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. I'm tracking transparency. Let's talk a little bit about Tile and Tile's antitrust claims against Apple. Now, this Tile launched or released their a statement of how their position shortly after Apple announced AirTags. So let me give you, let's see, I want to tell you the exact feature that Tile was trying to gain access to that they were denied, and AirTags accesses. So the CEO of Tile, CJ Prober, had an interview with Bloomberg, and some of the stuff I'm about to tell you is direct quotes from what he said in his interview. So he said, let's see, basically now the main points of differentiation of AirTags versus Tile are unique platform capabilities that we don't have access to. Seamless activation is an example, and another is ultra wide band. So Tile is claiming that they applied for access to Apple's U1 ultra wide band processor and they were denied. But Apple is using that with AirTags. So explain to me how that's not. I feel like Tile has more of a foothold here because they applied for access to a technology in the phone to make their product work better. Apple said, nah, we ain't gonna run you the access, but we're gonna make sure our AirTags have access to that component. So from a user perspective, if I'm using Tile on the iPhone, it's creating a disconnected experience, making it seem as though Tile is malfunctioning, when in actuality, there's limited access to the components on the phone that would make Tile work better. So how is this? What's the argument here for Apple as far as how are they justified in this?
So the ultra wide band, the U1 chip, is used for precision location tracking, right? So it allows for you to precisely find what you're looking for. So instead of saying that, hey, your set of keys are in this building, you can find your keys underneath a mat. You can precisely find exactly where they are, right? Now, the U1 chip is, I believe, for iPhone 11 models and up. So if you don't have an iPhone 11 or up, you can your
You
phone
can't
doesn't
utilize
have
that. It doesn't have that component.
This is not there. The reason why Tile wasn't granted access, I would believe that that would be similar to the Secure Enclave that deals with facial ID recognition software and also other private data.
Okay.
I would
So
believe
it would
that
create a vulnerability.
it would create a vulnerability for a third party to have access to this ultra wide band because of the kind of data that it generates or that is connected to. I will verify that and put a note in the description notes as well to support that a little more. But I believe that's why, that because the U1 chip and how it's used in privacy, it would create a vulnerability for third parties to gain access to the U1 chip. Now, that is also an argument that third parties are bringing out to say that Apple is leaning on their privacy policy to restrict access to third-party companies, and we see this in the repair industry as well. We see this in the repair industry. For instance, Face ID. If I do a screen repair, right? Let's say for an iPhone 11, if I do a screen repair, and the earpiece receiver is damaged, then Face ID will never ever work again on that phone unless it's replaced by Apple. Okay, we've talked about this before a little bit, but the
with the right to repair.
Yeah. The home button on iPhone 8s and iPhone 7s, if the home button is damaged and replaced with a third-party component, Touch ID won't work. That's because those products don't have the firmware to connect to that secure enclave that I talked about. It's a reserved part of the processor that computes and processes secure and encrypted data, right, and very, very private data. So
you just don't want to cut open access to something like that.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's also if you do a screen repair with a non-Apple branded part, you get a message that says, hey, this isn't an Apple part, and Apple says that they give that to the user because of privacy. But that also hurts third-party repair companies because it makes the experience sometimes disgenuine, where the client may believe that they're getting a subpar screen as opposed to an original equipment manufacturer screen that's just like the Apple screen, but it doesn't have the Apple branded on it. So we see that issue with Apple leaning on their privacy stance to kind of keep a close knit and closed environment on the hardware that they make accessible to third-party companies.
Okay.
And so just before you move on, I want to do a comparison of AirTags and Tile, so you can know the difference, right? So AirTags, their advantages is that they are integrated with iOS, right? So as soon as you pull out an AirTag, it's a very quick setup, and it integrates with your Find My application. Your Find My application is also the application that stores all your devices, right? All your iPhones and iPads and Macs that you want to be able to track as well. AirTags also have the Find My network. The Find My network, so if you lose your AirTag, there are other phones that can pick up the location of that AirTag and notify somebody to say, hey, this is where this AirTag is. And as soon as it's found, you can be notified to say, hey, somebody found your AirTag, and that can help you retrieve your AirTag if you can't find it for whatever reason, right? The ultra wideband, right? So that U1 chip for precise location of your AirTag. It is IP67 waterproof, and it is about $30. Okay, Tile, it's not iOS integrated. It is dual platform, so you can use it for iOS and Android. It has the Tile network. The Tile network is different from the Find My network, where if you have the Tile app installed on your iPhone, it's going to run in the background. So if your Tile is lost, just like if you lose your AirTag, that application can ping it, right? And that can help with assisting the retrieval of your
item,
of your Tile. Yes, but the issue with that is that there's over 1 billion iPhones, right, in the world. I don't know how many Tiles there are in the world and how many people are using Tile. So while the Tile network might be a good feature, I just don't know how robust it is in comparison to the Find My network, right? It has Bluetooth up to 400 feet, right? So if you are within that 400 feet range, you can locate it. However, if you get outside of that, you can't locate it, and that's where the benefit of the U1 chip also comes in. And then it is splash proof, so it doesn't have an IP rating, and they start at $25, and the Pro start at $30. So those are the differences, right? Me personally, of course, I think I used Tile when they came out in 2012. I used them for maybe 2 or 3 years. And just stopped using them because they weren't fully integrated. It just wasn't the best experience. Now, I haven't gone back since 2014, so they may have gotten better. And I was on their website a couple weeks ago, and they have some more products as well. They have a really small Tile that you can, it's like a sticker, and then they have like a bigger one for bigger products. So they've diversified since 2012. They were one of the first ones to the market. But their issue with Apple is that, okay, hey, now you've come into the market, you have all these devices, you're making a specific hardware component that has a feature that you are not allowing us to gain access to in the phone. So it's automatically creating
an advantage.
Yeah, you already have an advantage in the space. That's their argument. Another argument would be, well, in 2012, you were the first to the market. Tile was the first to the market. And so over
you had
time,
ample opportunity
you've had
to
ample opportunity
to
secure market share, right? To secure that market share. And you have an entire Android base, right? AirTags don't work with Android devices.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so you have an entire Android base of phones that you can start to market to, because Apple, as being one of the biggest players in the game, now they're coming out with a item tracking piece of hardware. Now it's going to raise the awareness of these products, of just the concept.
Yeah.
So people are going to become
what are the
more
alternatives?
Yeah, people are going to become more aware to that. Oh, I don't have an iPhone, but I still want to be able to track my products. Oh, let me look at Tile, and that can open up some more market share for you. So I see arguments on both sides, but it's just competition, and I think Tile still has an opportunity to make money here. I think they still have an opportunity for a significant market share. I don't think that Apple is bullying them as far as not letting them gain access to the U1 chip, but I'm going to do a little bit more research on that and get back to you just to make sure. But like I said, I think it's based on privacy, but I'll get back to you.
Okay. Just for a frame of reference, the antitrust law sets a pretty high bar for the plaintiff, who would be Epic, or anybody against Apple, bringing the charges against Apple. Typically, the courts tend to side with the corporation as opposed to these smaller businesses that are arguing against them. So I don't really have a lot of hope that Epic's gonna come out on top in this one, but it's forcing Apple to consider how they're navigating the market.
Yes, and I think that is great. I think that this lawsuit
it's a check and a balance.
Yeah, that Apple is not, in my opinion, Apple is not this big behemoth that is not opposed to changing their models, right? And being open to feedback. I think they're very open to feedback.
Their whole thing is feedback based.
Right. So I don't think that they are unwilling to move. My issue is that Epic is framing it as if they are supporting small businesses, and that's just not the case. I am a big supporter of small businesses, and I'm a big supporter of speaking truth to power, meaning small businesses fighting against the corporate monopolies in our economy. I 100% support that. But Epic is not a small business.
They're pretty epic.
All right, let's get that out the way. Epic is not a small business, right? And if we're framing, like I said, Epic takes 12% from
Facebook. Facebook not a small business either.
right. And Xbox, right? Xbox is still currently charging 30% to their developers. So Epic, if you're going to come at Apple, why are you singling out Apple? What about all these other gaming companies that are also utilizing the same monetization strategy? It's the industry standard. So yes, the industry standard might need to change, but it's not just Apple, right? It's an industry. It's a conversation that needs to happen within the industry, and I'm glad that it's happening. I just don't like the way that Epic is framing it and the way that they went about trying to bring Apple to a lawsuit by violating the App Store policy just to showcase what's going on. I don't like how Epic did that. I think it was real shady. But it brings us here. So we're 5 days into this antitrust hearing, this antitrust trial. It's going to go on for a couple weeks, so we'll keep you guys posted.
Absolutely. And I think that all of this antitrust stuff that's coming up, the Federal Trade Commission just published a report to Congress that digs into, it's coming more at the angle of when we're talking about the right to repair.
Mm-hmm.
So it's looking at the market of repair for independent repair shops and how accessible it is for them to offer those services in light of the restrictions that different companies such as Apple, Google, Samsung place on their parts, their products, their diagnostic tools, all those different components that we were talking about in the right to repair. So I think this is going to be an excellent resource for our listeners to dig into. It's like a 50-page document. It reviews the current environment it talks about antitrust related to manufacturer restrictions on repair. It talks about monopolization claims involving aftermarket restrictions. Let's see a little bit more so it's kind of like assessing what's going on in the marketplace now. And it's also providing information around the arguments being put forth by the manufacturers as far as their claims to protection of intellectual property, safety, cybersecurity, liability, and reputational harm. So that's kind of like the angle that the larger businesses are taking. They're also assessing the arguments of the right to repair advocates, such as ourselves. So talking about the timing of repair, accessibility for consumers, price of repair, environmental harm, which is a big one, and small business and employment opportunities that are created by that. The report kind of rounds out talking about the Federal Trade Commission's recommendations as far as what can be done with law enforcement, self-regulation in the industry, different legislative approaches that can be taken to kind of level the playing field, and just kind of like in their overview to start, they're really talking about how the combination of the pandemic has created the lack of accessibility to repairs, in that a lot of these large companies have closed down their locations. So for a time, if you broke your phone, you couldn't just go to the Apple store. You had to ship your phone off to an authorized repair center because you couldn't even go to the Apple store to get your phone fixed. And it's so difficult for you to get access to independent repair shop who might have been open. Like we were open. Mm-hmm. We're an essential business. Kids are going to school. People are working from home. Like people need to use their computers and their smartphones more than ever. So, did you have any comment on this report that came out from the Federal Trade Commission? I know it's a little thick, but I think that a lot of our users who are just starting to hear about antitrust and trying to understand, like, what does this mean for me? I think this report is going to really help people to start to digest what does this mean for me as a consumer, because it even identifies that the underrepresented communities, and when I say that, I mean communities of color, Hispanic communities, there's a larger reliance on smartphones in those communities, and those same communities have a lower access to Wi-Fi at home. Mm-hmm. So you're seeing people who have this reliance on these devices because we're running our businesses through our phones, mm-hmm. we're going to school through our phones, we're working for our boss, these different companies that we're employed by through our devices. So we can't afford to not have access.
So my only point there would be for those that are that really want to take a deep dive into privacy and how the Federal Trade Commission is now really looking at the intricacies of how these companies are moving financially and also ethically, right? Seeing how those are working, how they're working in tandem, and which companies are doing this right, and which ones may not
are making it difficult.
Yeah. So if this is something that's important to you, we'll drop it down in the description comments. It's a little long, it's a little dense, but if it's important to you, if you want to become more aware of what's going on, this is a great document for you to just peruse through. And we'll be referencing this document in the upcoming podcasts because this antitrust conversation is not going anywhere. This is just the tip of the iceberg. This is the tip of the iceberg. The awareness of these issues is just now coming to the forefront. They've been in conversations in the tech community for a very long time, but now they're becoming more mainstream. And as more people become more aware of how their data is being used, as more companies are starting to fight against other companies for market share and user base and privacy, this is just going to become bigger and bigger. So it would behoove you, it'd be in your best interest to become more aware of these antitrust hearings and how your data is being used, right? I think before we close out, I have one more topic I just want to talk about quickly.
Sleepers?
Shouts out to the Joe Budden podcast. Crypto. I'm not going to speak on it long. But I just want to update you guys on some things that we're doing here in the store. Okay. Back in our Bitcoin conversation, I talked about unstoppable domains. Okay, that's unstoppable domains. And unstoppable domains is basically a platform that allows you to transition your digital wallet public address to a domain name. Okay, and so what I mean by that, if you want to be able to send cryptocurrency right now, you have to send this long hexadecimal string of letters and numbers to another person. And the risk with that is if you get one of those letters or numbers wrong and you send the money,
your money is gone.
There's no chase protection you can call to say, hey, can you refund me my money? But that doesn't work on the blockchain. Once it's gone, it's gone. And there have been a lot of people that have lost money or sent money improperly to people because they have used the wrong, they've mistyped the public address. And Unstoppable Domains has come up with a solution to say, hey, we're going to wrap your public address in a domain name in a readable text that's easy for people to translate. So if your public address is a string of 20 characters, it is now, for our company, ours is Josh with a Genius, Genius with a J, joshwithagenius.crypto. Okay?
That's
and if
simple.
you send, very, very simple. And if you send to joshwithagenius.crypto, it will automatically send to me and it will deposit into the correct cryptocurrency wallet. I believe,
I guess based on whichever currency you're sending.
Right. So right now, we support Bitcoin, we support Ethereum, we support Litecoin, we support Ripple, and we also support Dogecoin. So if you want to pay for products and services here in the store with any of those cryptocurrencies, you can use Josh with a Genius, send it that way, and it will automatically deposit in the correct wallet on our side. So I don't have to send you this long string of numbers just so that you can deposit or excuse me, send cryptocurrency for products and services. Now, the issue with that currently with the domain addresses for public addresses, domain names for public addresses, is that a lot of the platforms right now aren't accepting domain names as public addresses, right? So if you try to put in joshuagenius.crypto in some platforms, it's not going to accept it. You still need the standard hexadecimal long string of characters. If that's the case, we can still provide you with that, right? We can send it via email or via text, send it right to you. You copy and paste it, and you can send it over, right? But platforms like Coinbase, right? Coinbase is a free application that you can download. We're going to put in the description comments a link where you can download it, and if you use that link, you get $10 worth of free Bitcoin. Okay, use that link down in the descriptive comments. $10 of free Bitcoin when you download Coinbase. And Coinbase is a great application for you to buy cryptocurrency as well as store and send cryptocurrency. Okay,
so it functions as a digital wallet as well as a trading platform.
Yep. So if you want to buy Bitcoin, store it there, and then send it to another wallet that you have, or a hard wallet, or a cold storage, you can do that. Send it to the computer. You can send it back and forth. It has those features. It's a free application, and they've been in the market. They're one of the industry leaders in the market for cryptocurrency purchasing and storing. So
they
Coinbase
just went public, huh?
They just went public, and they are releasing their earnings revenues, I think, on the 13th of May.
That would be the first report since they've gone public.
That would be the first.
That would be interesting to see.
We'll see. We'll see. They're the first company to go public that has the type of platform that they have.
I think Robinhood is next to go public.
We'll
but I'm a little concerned about Robinhood, but we could do that in another episode.
Yeah. We can talk about Webull and
their
Robinhood
business model is a
and
little
Kraken
trash, bro.
and Binance and all these various different platforms. I have probably 10 different platforms on my iPhone right now that I use for cryptocurrency. So if you aren't in the crypto game, I suggest getting into it. I'm not saying put in your whole life savings, but I am saying
Don't do that.
I am saying diversify your assets, right? If you have stocks and bonds, you have real estate, right? Get a little bit of crypto, right? I would say right now, like, let me make a disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor by any means. I'm not a financial advisor, so please do not take any of my advice as financial advice. However, my recommendation would be Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, and Ripple. Litecoin, I own some Litecoin, but I haven't seen a lot of progress with it. It has gone up a little bit, but I haven't seen a lot of progress with it. But those four, Bitcoin, Ethereum,
those been going up.
Ripple, and Dogecoin, right? Dogecoin right now just hit over 70 cents. 2 weeks ago.
From being 5 cents?
No. From two weeks ago, it was 30 cents. And then maybe 3-4 months ago, it was maybe 10 cents, 9 cents, right? Now it's 70 cents, right? So you guys can do your research on your cryptocurrencies yourself.
Or you could go back and listen to our cryptocurrency episode. I think that was number 3. Episode number 3.
Episode number 3, yes. So that's crypto. If you want to create your own, right, for your own business, right, and make this easier for your clients or just for your friends to send you crypto, you can go to Unstoppable Domains, pay for it. This is a decentralized domain, which means that once you own it, and nobody can take it from you, and they can't take it down.
Oh, so it's not like a yearly thing like website
It's
domains.
not. It's not like going to GoDaddy and having to pay every year for a domain name. No, when you pay
Once
for
you
it
have
once,
it.
it is yours into perpetuity as long as you have access to the
I like
digital
that.
wallet that you purchased that domain with. Okay? If you guys have questions, if you want to ask me anything, if you have some feedback, you can email us here at joshwithagenius@gmail.com. That's genius with a J. joshwithagenius@gmail.com. You can email me your questions, and I can get back to you with my best responses. Okay?
All right, that's pretty much it. If you guys want to pay us a visit here at the store, you want to come say hi, or you drop your phone in the street and you need help, we're located right in the heart of Main Street, right on Rodette's Gata, across from Stonehouse Cafe, upstairs of Valentine's Jewelers, right next door to Chico Jewelry Repair. You can reach us at 340-227-3821. we're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and we're also open on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, no days off, 1 to 5, because we are here to serve you. So come on, say hi, and let us help you.
Definitely. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.